This program contains adult content.
Is there a God?
Big atheist.
Really?
What, am I an idiot? Come on.
That yes, it would be nice if you could throw your sins and your responsibilities on someone else. But it's not true.
It looks like far-left lunacy.
I don't believe that it's true that religion is moral or ethical.
You don't need to follow anybody!
It's not human intelligence!
If someone doesn't value logical consistency, what logical argument are you going to give them that will demonstrate that they should?
Welcome to the Godless Revolution. I'm Dan Ellis, doing John Oliver. Today is Friday, March 6th. This is episode 201. Yay! We're over the hump. We're over the hump.
Oh, was that the hump?
I had the 200 hump.
Huh. That wasn't a bad hump.
You go up the hill toward 200, and then you go down the hill, and then you go up the hill toward 300.
At what point do you stop celebrating?
Did I say today's Friday, March 6th? It's a Friday, so
yeah.
I can get fucking drunk and shit while we're recording. I didn't really take that into account. I only brought down one cocktail. But I'm Dan Ellis.
I'm Ryan Duffy.
And I'm Matt.
No, we're happily joined by wonderful X from Utah Outcasts.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, everybody. I like when you do that on the show. That's kind of your trademark now.
It is.
Yay. So tonight we have a wonderful interview with Dr. Hector Garcia, who wrote Alpha God, The Psychology of Religious Violence and Oppression. It's a fucking awesome book, man. I have to admit, I didn't read the whole thing yet. I've read through, almost all of chapter 4.
But he's also a really interesting guy.
Yeah.
And I'm looking very much forward to reading this and his next book.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, but you'll have to wait for that. The second book sounds really interesting to you political hacks out there that love this kind of thing.
Oh, yeah, I'll bet Taylor would love that one. The political one. Being an atheist and super into politics. But yeah, that'll be awesome. I look forward to that and having him on the show again. Great interview, fantastic book. I can't say enough good things about it, and I'm only 4 chapters in. So if you have not read it yet, you should go and check it out for sure. I plan on writing a glowing review once I've completed the book, but I have not done that yet, so I cannot write the review and be totally honest about it. But
it's like, what, $12 on Kindle, I think?
Yeah, I think you can get it for $12 on Kindle and like, what was it, 15?
15 on paperback or hardback. Yeah. I'm not sure which one it was, but.
Yeah, but really, really fucking good book. What have you guys been up to over the last week and change? Almost 2 weeks since we recorded last.
I have a couple things.
Yeah?
Yeah. One thing, so, what?
Just,
it's anticipation.
I got a couple things. Yeah, I'm excited. What are they?
I don't believe that. I don't believe that's what it is. Yeah, so, much of the news in recent weeks have been about the long overdue push for gun control measures in this country.
I've been arguing with so many people.
Yeah. And of course it's being met with furious resistance from ammophiles. But one of the things that I've noted though is that the same people who have a hard-on for Wayne LaPierre are the ones who whined that Colin Kaepernick and company were disrespecting the troops. But their reason for keeping their AR-15s is in case the government ever gets out of control. So it's like, we support the troops, but I'm going to fucking mow them down the second that opportunity comes up.
That's what always seems so fucking weird to me, is that everybody's like, well, what if our government gets out of hand and, we've got to protect ourselves? And I'm like, protect ourselves from who? We are the government. We are the military. All of us, not like us as a citizen population. That's who we are. It's not like our military is imported from some fucking foreign land. They're Americans. They're your fucking neighbors.
Yeah. I just think it's interesting that kneeling on a football field is disrespecting the troops, but hanging on to all of your assault rifles so that you can
eventually mow them down.
Shoot down a bunch of troops that might be infringing on your other rights or whatever.
That is a very interesting point.
Yeah.
That's a good one. I like that.
I've been having a lot of fun watching the right wing attempt to character assassinate teenagers.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
I've put a couple of videos of David Hogg and Laura Ingraham out there, and it's just like, the people coming out, David Hogg's a fucking liar. I'm like, he's 17.
He's a crisis actor. Dude, there's a whole website devoted to calling him a crisis actor and just trying to tear him down. It's run by the same fucking guy who does natural news and all that other pseudoscience bullshit.
David Avocado Wolf.
No, it's, what is it? Mike Adams?
Oh, another.
It's either Mike or Mark Adams.
I don't know.
His last name is Adams, either Mike or Mark. But yeah, it's just, it's a whole shit show. He holds.
Not the Dilbert guy.
No, that's Scott Adams.
That's another fucking Adam.
But yeah, he's the guy who runs Natural News and all these other pseudoscientific websites just full of woo and bullshit. Anyway.
What else you got?
Yeah, so like all week, basically, we've been paying attention to my mom's health, and then my aunt has a heart attack.
Oh, no. How's your mom doing?
She's doing better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because when we recorded last, your father was having, or had called you because your mother was having some issues, but she's doing better.
And she needed a drink of water.
Yeah. She's in a home now.
Oh yeah. Is this a move to the home, or is this a temporary thing?
No, she's there for probably ever.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. She'll get the care and attention she needs and craves. Sometimes it seems like. Yeah, well, that's good. I'm glad, and then your dad doesn't have to deal with it as much and be as burdened with it. Is he at the home with her, or is he staying at the family house?
He stays at home, but then visits her at her new home. Yeah.
At her new residence? Well, that's good. So what was the second thing?
That was it.
Oh.
My aunt had a heart attack.
Your aunt had a heart attack. Is she all right, or?
No, she's dead.
Oh, God. I'm sorry.
Oh.
Was she a lovely person, or you're like?
Yeah, she was cool.
Oh, well, good. I mean.
What are you saying, Dan?
Oh, good. Your nice aunt is dead now. No, I mean, it was good. She was a good person. I'm sorry that happened. That sucks.
It's like he's secretly hoping she was some sort of asshole. Be like, well, good. I'm glad that happened to her.
How old was she?
80.
Oh, okay. So she died of
so
death.
That's fine.
It makes it it makes it a little less tragic, but
yeah. Anybody that hits at least 80, it's just at that point where you're like, yeah, you died of death.
She smoked a lot.
You died of death, and what did he die from? Death.
But it's my dad's sister though, so that sucked.
So your dad's having a hard time.
Yeah, he is.
Damn. Well, hopefully he's doing all right. Is he managing it well?
I haven't talked to him since. I don't know how he's doing. I mean, probably.
He'll be fine.
I don't know. Maybe he didn't answer because he's dead.
Oh, so you tried calling?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I try calling my dad when I have to. Like I don't just chat with my dad.
Is that something you're supposed to do as an adult? Fuck, I am doing this wrong.
I hear a lot of people do it. I've never been that guy. Like I'll chat with my mom, but it's because I see her more often, but I don't like call my mom to just chat either.
Mm-hmm.
My wife had told me that my dad had to go in and get an endoscope done, and he came to find out that he had an ulcer, and I'm like, oh, that sucks. And she's like, have you called him? I'm like, why? It's just an ulcer. Wait, am I supposed to give a shit? You know?
Yeah, I've just never been that guy who calls their parents and just chats.
Hi, how are you?
Which kind of makes me a shitty kid, I think, because like they've done quite a bit, and my mom has always been there. Like if I ever needed anything, she was just fucking right there, and I don't call and just chit chat with her.
Yeah,
but
mine had it coming.
Yes. And what have you been doing over the last week?
Oh, Jesus. I'm getting ready for a vacation coming up in the next couple of weeks. And
didn't you just go on vacation somewhere?
No, I'm going to Hawaii in like 2 weeks.
Just you and the wife, or you and the wife and kids?
No, it's wife, kids, and the entire extended Mormon family.
Oh, that sounds fun.
And we're staying 2 blocks away from the BYU campus in Hawaii, where we're going to go to the Polynesian Cultural Center.
Of course you are.
And I'm like, they're talking about, well, when we get there, let's go to Costco because we're staying at a house instead of a hotel.
Did you get like an Airbnb or something?
Yeah, well, it's like a house that can like hold like 17 people.
Oh, wow.
So it's going to be fun.
So,
but at the same time,
might hold a Mormon family?
Yeah, exactly. On this, especially this side of the family. And so I said, well, if they're going to Costco, can they pick me up a handle of whatever vodka they have? Because fucking delicious. It's good stuff from there. And they're like,
we don't purchase alcohol.
We don't really feel like we'd be okay doing that. And I'm like, how about I pay you double? Because that's still cheaper than Utah rates. And just, no, it's not the cost that we're worried about. I'm just,
Jesus might see us fondling your alcohol and be very disapproving of it. Okay.
I'm like, I only promise that me, my wife, and maybe a kid will have some of it, but
jeez. That's fucking childish.
It's fun.
I can't even purchase it because you're just going to consume it, and then I'm contributing to your consumption of the devil's juice, and that's just not a good thing.
Every one of these people that goes dressed the way that they do, it's like, you're going to have all this beachwear on plus garments. It's like, why are you going to make yourself fucking miserable in the tropics wearing fucking garments? It's just...
Oh, you get used to it. It's just, they're light and breezy. It's fine.
Apparently the new ones are, I think, but I don't know if anybody's gotten those yet. The ladies got their new garments. The guys still have to wear the bum flap ones? I don't know about that.
No.
Okay.
No. They have sexy garments now. They're, sexier,
I wanted
maybe.
to break into the fuck me in the ass for Jesus song that
the poop hole loophole.
Mm-hmm.
So I attended the American Atheist convention. That was a whole lot of fun. Saw and spoke with and visited with so many fantastic fucking people. One of my favorite moments was Mandisa Thomas's talk about the atheist community. That was fucking amazing. Mandisa's just awesome. We need to get her on the show. I keep telling her every time I see her, I'm like, oh, we need to get you on the show, and I fucking don't do it. So she'll be coming on the show soon, sometime here in the near future. So the first day, like on Thursday, when there's not really anything going on and we're just meeting for American Atheist stuff as state directors and stuff, I happened to walk into a room where Aaron was sitting. No, actually, this was still Thursday, I believe. But I walked into a room where Aaron was sitting. I sat down behind him. I just tapped him on the shoulder. Hey man, how you doing? I was like, oh, hey Dan. Yeah, sorry I missed your show. And then he gave me, I think, what could be a pretty funny reason why he had to cancel on us at the last minute. But I will save that for when he does come on the show, because he said that he absolutely does want to come on the show and apologized profusely for having to cancel. But he had a good reason for not coming on the show that was funny in retrospect, I think. I think he thinks it's kind of funny too, but I'll let him tell the story when he comes on the show.
You had to be there.
But yeah, it was amazing. I got a high five from Hugh Laurie when he was walking off stage. Nice. And he was just a genuinely really nice guy. Met and spoke with several fans of the show who were very excited that I was there.
Really? In Oklahoma, huh?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, and they were from all over, but that's where the convention was. Also ran into a bunch of fellow podcasters there. Thomas Smith.
Who?
Thomas Smith.
The leader of the Outrage Brigade.
The hardest to Google man on earth.
So Thomas was there, and Noah, Heath, and Eli, and Cecil was there from Cognitive Dissonance.
That is a hairy man.
He is very hairy. He's got a great beard, though. It's like super dark and thick.
He's Italian.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, Cirillo, yeah. One of the cutest things was I was standing outside talking to Jack Maturko and a few other people, and Noah happened to be out there, and there was a couple there who had a Boston Terrier who had like almost identical markings to Oliver. But he's like half Oliver's size and is full grown. Tracy thought it was a puppy when she first saw it, because Oliver's a big
he is.
Boston Terrier, and this one was more small, but it was so fucking cute and adorable. So it comes out and we're petting it and saying hi and everything. And Noah came walking over and like got down on his knees, and the dog just fucking attacked, not attacked him in a bad way, but was just like jumping up on him, trying to like lick his face and everything. It was fucking adorable. It was like the cutest thing for the whole conference. That was the cuteness overload for the conference, but met a bunch of really cool people, chatted with a bunch of people that I only get to see like once a year at the convention that are awesome people, heard a lot of great, fantastic talks, learned a lot, and yeah, it was a great time. Had a very good time, aside from my wound on my leg getting infected, and that sucked. But
You mean that wasn't the cutest part of the
no, this is kind of the grossest part.
Oh, look at you cute little festering thing. I love the way you ooze.
So
the cute part was Noah attracting animals.
Well, I have a history of skin cancer and melanomas, and so I go into the dermatologist every 6 months and get however many moles removed for biopsy, and then I usually have to go back to have one or two more excised more fully. And so the last time I went in, I had to get one excised more fully on my leg, and I had a couple stitches, and that was all fine and good, and it was healing very well. Everything was going fine. I was going to get my stitches out the day after we got back from Oklahoma, but the 2 days before we were set to leave,
Lawrence Krauss
swiped
your leg.
He came over and grabbed the edge of my skirt. No, it just, I'm guessing it was just being maybe in a hotel room. I rubbed my leg on something gross in the hotel room. I don't know, but it got really infected really fast, but it's getting much better now.
With your explanation of moles and how many you've had removed makes me think your body's description would be trypophobia. Just be
all full of holes.
All full of holes.
Yeah. Well, it's just all scar tissue now. Like I have so many scars. It's ridiculous. I look like, I don't know. I went through some kind of war with small munitions and
survived the shrapnel wars.
Yeah, I should have several Purple
the
Hearts.
airsoft wars of whatever.
All right, well, let's move on to some newsy stuff, shall we? Or no, let's do the interview first, and then we'll do some newsy stuff.
Sure.
Okay.
I'm Bryce Barkenagel. Have you ever wondered if Joseph Smith was drugging the early Mormons? Turns out it might be possible when you have a fantastic congregation that is witnessing angels floating around in the rafters and think that the temple is on fire and they're running out in the snow and writhing around on the ground naked. Yeah, as it turns out, drugs might be the best explanation. Be sure to check out my Sunstone Symposium presentation on the Joseph Smith entheogen theory by punching that into any YouTube browser. And thank you so much for checking that out, and be sure to check out the Naked Mormonism podcast. This is the Godless Revolution.
Dad, today at school, my teacher said we evolved from other animals. That's not true, is it?
Of course not, Stephen. We were created by Monkey God in his monkey image.
But how do we know for sure God's a monkey?
Well, do you think God throws his own poop and enjoys jumping up and down in place?
Yeah.
And do you think when he's eating bananas, he periodically stops chewing and looks around with an angry expression to make sure no one's plotting to steal them?
Yeah.
And do you think his ass is slightly less hairy than the rest of his body?
Yeah.
Then there's your answer, champ.
Okay, but how do we know God really loves us?
Because his son died for our sins. Monkey Jesus could have ripped off the Romans' arms and masturbated all over their bodies, but he chose love instead. And I think that makes him pretty darn special.
Cool. Thanks, Dad.
You and the Godless Revolution will be reassimilated in 3, 2, 1.
All right. On the line with us, we have Dr. Hector Garcia. How are you tonight?
Very good. Thank you.
Excellent. It's great to have you on the show. It was also great to meet you in person in Oklahoma.
Ditto. Yeah. Thank you for having me.
No, my pleasure. I am absolutely loving your book. So for those in the audience, Dr. Garcia is a clinical psychologist and has written a book called Alpha God. And I was instantly hooked. By the time I was able to actually start reading it, I have to admit to everybody out there that I have not completed the entire book. I'm like 2 pages shy, at least in my Kindle thing wise, of finishing chapter 4. But from like the early pages in chapter 1, I was totally hooked. You seem to have this way of presenting a bunch of historical information really, really succinctly and pulling no punches while doing so, and then just grabbing people's attention, providing this bit of historical information, and then moving forward into modern day and how these historical bits of information are influencing everything up from the time that those events occurred until present day. And it's really, I don't know, just so far in reading the first 4 chapters of the book, it's changed a lot of the way that I view some of the events that are going on in the world currently, and how I view how religion has evolved. And I think it's amazing. Before we get more into your book, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Sure. Well, I'm a clinical psychologist, and I specialize in treating combat-related PTSD using evidence-based treatments. And I'm in the Department of Psychiatry at the University of Texas Health Science Center in San Antonio. And just very, very much interested in the evolutionary sciences. I just think about this stuff all the time. I find it endlessly fascinating. I find it to provide key insights into who we are and into, a lot of the social problems that we face. It's just an incredibly valuable tool that I want to be kind of an ambassador for as much as I can and share whatever insights happen to come to me.
Have you always been an atheist?
Yeah, I would say yes. I hear a lot of people talking about how they converted from being very religious to being an atheist. But in my case, I kind of grew up atheist. I came from a pretty huge Mexican Catholic family, but my dad was an atheist. He was a Darwinist, so I never had to go through all that.
That is very fortunate. Especially there in Texas. Have you lived in Texas your entire life?
For the most part, I grew up in El Paso along the border, and moved around a bit. Went to school on the East Coast, went to Rutgers, and stayed in New York for a few years. Lived in New Mexico, but mostly around Texas. Yeah.
And so when you wrote the book, because you were an atheist, I'm guessing most of your family was aware of this information, that you didn't have to come out to them, or there wasn't much of a brouhaha about you writing a book basically saying that God was created in man's image?
Oh, there was some brouhaha. There was some definite brouhaha. But, I've always been atheist, but I haven't been, I haven't had the card that one carries, so to speak. It's not, I just never really believed. So, I wasn't especially outward about it like a lot of people. It's starting to be a little bit more as I see the value of doing that. I think it helps other people who are worried, about what will happen if they report that they don't believe to their social group. They're worried about committing social suicide, right? They're worried about, if I say that, who am I going to have left? Who's my tribe? And so I think, just being open about non-belief lets people know that, hey, you can come to us. You don't have to, you don't have to be alone in your unbelief. So, in a nutshell.
Do you have any other siblings or anything that you grew up with, or were you an only child?
Oh no, siblings, giant family where I don't know how many cousins I have. I got a ton. So a lot of family growing up, some of them who are born again, they really responded negatively. A lot didn't. And, mostly the ones of the family who is Catholic had a much more measured response to me talking about these issues. And, I think one good thing is the Catholic Church has accepted publicly the veracity of natural selection.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. That's a start.
Yeah.
So maybe that has something to do with it. I don't know.
So tell us a little bit more about the premise of the book.
So the subtitle, I think, is very important, and it is The Psychology of Religious Violence and Oppression. And that's what the whole book attempts to explain. And, the idea is that across the world's religions, we have gods who are described as having resplendent powers that human beings don't have, like being omnipotent, having ultimate power, being omniscient, knowing everything, being immaterial, like not having a bodily form like you or I, and being everlasting, like never dying. Yet this God is described as being immensely territorial, very interested in submission displays by his subordinates, and being male, and being sexually controlling. So, this idea that we created our gods in our own image is not new to me. That's been around for millennia. But the book attempts to explain, where did this come from? Where do these projections come from? They come from our primate ancestry. They come from men, and men are biological creatures who need territory, who need sex for reproduction and food to eat and things like that, and who establish themselves among the primate hierarchy. An immaterial God shouldn't really care about these things, nor should a God who has ultimate power and never dies. But this God is reported to be immensely interested in all these very human-like concerns. So that's what it's about, and everything else kind of follows that.
And it's more confusing, even at least for me, that not sorry, this is Matt, but not only would a supposedly perfect God possess these clear deficits to his personality, but there's almost a demand that his followers behave in terrible ways to other people as well. Clearly he's not real, right? But
what are you talking about, Matt?
But so this is just an extension of human apes, sort of projecting their desires and personality traits. Like, these are the biggest, best qualities, or the things I fear most, right? And they lump all of that into the God. Is that kind of what you're saying about that?
Well, yeah, I think you hit it right there. I mean, gods don't engage in crusades or steering airplanes into buildings or on jihad or blowing themselves up. Gods don't engage in that. Men do, and men follow their evolutionary imperatives into those kinds of behaviors, citing their God as inspiration, saying this male deity wants this for them and for the tribe. So, God in many ways is seen as the headman of the tribe and protecting only that in-group, much like we would see, among hunter-gatherers. So yeah, gods don't do any of these things. Men do.
Right. Which is kind of interesting, because when you think about how Abrahamic religions came from a originally polytheistic way of thinking, and you had the pantheon of gods that were out there, and for some reason El Shaddai got picked as the one that won among everybody else. We have the war god of the Bible. Well, actually not the Bible. It's prior to that. It's kind of interesting that you see a lot of the polytheistic religions in the past where they didn't quite seem to have as much of a violent streak as the nations that have sprung up underneath the Abrahamic religions, like Judaism, Christianity, and of course Islam. But it's just kind of interesting that when you had multiple gods that were able to have some power, but not the consolidation of all power, that it seemed to be kind of okay that you could pick and choose which God you wanted to have to believe in. But once we had the one true God, and he had all of the omnipresence, omniscient, omnibenevolent, whatever the hell, all the omnis that you give him. Yeah. All of a sudden, we've got this super big fucking villain, it seems really interesting to me. I mean, I could be speaking completely out of my ass on this because I'm not an expert on polytheistic cultures in the times past, but it just doesn't seem like you have the same kind of violence that have risen out of having a monotheism versus a polytheism.
Yeah, and I think, well, what's interesting to me too is that even in polytheistic religions, there's always a dumb god, and he's usually male, and he usually kind of presides over the other gods.
Absolutely.
But I think what happened a lot in the Fertile Crescent as populations became expanding and tribal groups started growing and competing with one another, is that there was a need to consolidate all the deities, so to sort of cement tribal identity into one identity, and that's what Robert Wright talks about so clearly in his book, The Evolution of God, which I cite a lot in my first chapter. So there was a need for that, and the need was to there was a martial purpose for all of this.
So you have masculine emphasis on a lot of what you talk about. What's the reason? I mean, we know what the reason is, but I just want to say, like, you've emphasized that a lot during this conversation. So for the sake of our listeners, you're not just picking on men for no reason.
Yes, I'm picking on men, definitely.
To be honest, we've earned it.
Well, you're picking on men, but it is for good reason, I would say.
Well, look, what I always like to tell people who may not be incredibly versed in evolutionary sciences is to be aware of what is known as the naturalistic fallacy. And what that is, it's an error in thinking such that just because something is arrived at through biological means, through genetic means, doesn't mean that it's desirable, doesn't mean that it's necessarily moral, or that it's inevitable, because it's often none of those things. So just because we may have a tendency for something, it doesn't mean that it's a foregone conclusion that we can't avoid it. And as a matter of fact, I would argue that, if we're more aware of where these things like violence and oppression come from, the ultimate source, if we're more aware, the more knowledge we have, the better, not the less able we are to resist them and to make better choices. But the truth remains that being male, is a huge predictor of violence. You can look at all kinds of different predictors: poverty, geography, politics, but the male sex is clearly exponentially more violent than women. So we kind of have a responsibility then to look at men and say, okay, where does this ultimately come from? And that's what I try to do in this book in the context of religion.
Now, just for the sake of conversation, I happen to have a whole lot of trans friends that are out there. Would you attribute the violence, I mean, not so much just a toxic masculinity that there is, could it be tied to testosterone or chromosomal, or is it just mainly societal or culturally based? Where the violence
I think it's all of these things, okay. But definitely there's a clear link between testosterone and aggression. And
absolutely.
What I really point out in this book, and I think this is important for any understanding of violence of any kind between men, is that like other species, men compete for mates. There's all kinds of reasons that men have to compete for mates, and usually because the ratio of sexually available women and sexually available men is skewed. So, reproductive resources, which all animals compete for, they're limited in females compared to males. So in humans, it's limited to the span between adolescence and menopause, by pregnancy, by practices like polygyny, where one man gets access to numerous wives and the other men may not have access. Things like divorced men remarry more than divorced women, and they tend to remarry younger. So in other words, they trade in for fertile females.
Tony Randall.
Right. We can think of endless examples.
Yeah.
But the point is, like other animals, when there's a scarcity, we compete for those scarcities. And so behind warfare, behind violence, whether religious, political, or otherwise, mate competition's at the heart of that. And you asked about testosterone. One thing that I find very interesting is that the peak years for violence in males also coincides to their peak sexual years, when their sexual energy is at its highest and their testosterone is at its highest. Something like 18 to 20, 25, something like that.
I was going to say nobody in this room then.
Not in this room.
Now,
I don't know. You can't grow a beard like that without a lot of testosterone, Dan.
Yeah, there is that. What does it say about my testosterone if my penis is shaped like a rubber ducky?
Oh, man, that just means you're a beta cuck. That's all that means.
Oh, dang.
That may say more about your genome.
That's funny that you said beta cuck, because you actually mentioned the word cuck and cuckold, and it's I learned the origin of that word through reading your book. I'd never like I knew what cuckold was in modern parlance, but I wasn't sure what the etymology of it was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, from the cuckoo bird. It lays eggs in other species' nests, and it kind of suckers the resident birds into caring for an offspring that isn't theirs. And for men, that's a very dangerous proposition because, especially in the lives of our ancestors, caring for a child, getting resources is risky and takes a lot of time and energy. So, even worse than not reproducing is spending all that energy and taking all that risk raising a child that's not yours. So before we had such thing as contraception, that was a real serious concern. And, that concern is behind a lot of the sexually controlling behaviors of men and has this crazy way of eking itself into the legal realm, into law and government. Up until 1973, I think it was, or 72 in Texas, it was legal to murder your wife if you caught her cheating on you.
Holy shit.
And that is born directly out of the fear of being cuckolded.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me, actually, but...
honestly shouldn't surprise you, but at the same time, it's like, you think about how we think we're these species that have moved on from that kind of thing, and it's just like, fuck, it's such a short history into the past when you had overt racism and overt murder for shit like that. It's crazy.
It's crazy. It's crazy. And, how do we understand that? Well, there's no clearer way to understand that than to look at this very ancient biological concern. And the thing is that secular law and religious law, who makes those laws? Well, men typically do. And they usually make those laws to serve their evolutionary interests. Mm-hmm. So, in Islamic cultures, it's legal to do all kinds of things to your mate to prevent her from straying, to keep her locked up. And sometimes, the whole idea behind swathing women in burqas and things like that is so, to prevent tempting her or tempting other men to her and potentially becoming cuckolded,
Yeah, the same could be said about like FGM that they do to their ladies over there. It's to remove all pleasure from the act of child rearing, You
bet. And that very concern spills over into to the fascination with virginity that we see across the world. That's the thing, virgins by definition come free from the genes of your rivals. So across religions, there's been this fascination with virginity. Like the Incan sun gods had virgins dedicated to them. The fathers of Jesus and Krishna of Hinduism, they preferred virgins, right? In Paul, it says, for I have espoused to you one husband that I may present you as a chaste virgin to Christ. So Paul, at least for Paul, Christ expects virgins. So why would our gods want that? Why would men want that?
Because God wants what men want.
Right? It's what men want.
Hi, this is David Silverman, president of American Atheists. Join us at www.atheists.org, and you are listening to The Godless Revolution.
I just wish you could at least pretend to support me.
I support you every single day, honey. I pray for you.
Yeah, what do you say?
I say, dear Heavenly Father, please protect my Bridget. She's a little lost. She's like a sheep. Please guide her towards...
Okay, I'm a sheep.
You're a beautiful sheep, Bridget. I didn't say you were a pig.
I'd rather be a pig.
Than a sheep?
Yeah, because pigs are smart.
Yeah, well, you know what? Sheeps can
are
make clothing. Pigs can only make bacon, and Jewish people don't even eat that.
rejoining the Godless Revolution podcast now.
Yeah, I was curious about that. You just said that men want women who are virgins because then they're not contaminated by the genes of their enemies, right? But typically when those females were captured and, when they would go into a city and in the Bible it talks about, go into the city and kill everyone, say, except for the virgins and keep them for yourselves. But wouldn't they have at least some of the genes of their enemies, right? They may not have been quote unquote contaminated by the seed of their enemies, but they would still have their genetic information, right?
Well, I don't think the concern is about that as much as like caring for another man's offspring, which would contain none of your genes, right? If you mate with your enemy's females, your offspring has half of your genes as opposed to none.
So it's more about siring than anything.
Right. Yeah. So it's more about whether those females had potentially born any children. And of course, virgins, unless you're Mary and unless you're Mary and you don't follow Mormon theology, then you would still be a virgin.
Which that story is still dubious at best.
I also like how you included a lot of Mormon theology in your book.
Oh, because we're in Utah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, in Jacob it says, "For I, the Lord God, delight in the chastity of women, and whoredoms are an abomination before me." So that's saith the Lord of hosts. That's in Jacob. So, yeah, I mean, it's a common theme across religions that have been separated by, even religions that had little contact with one another across the millennia. There's a fascination with virgins, and it's very old, and all of this gets projected onto God, and that's the thing, So God has this fascination for virgins that he passes on to his representatives on earth. But, the thing is, an omniscient God would already know if a child is his, and an omnipotent God wouldn't really care, right? He can produce with as many women as he wants, presumably without, incurring a cost of any kind. So it's clearly, projecting our own primate concerns onto God. And the main thing about this book is like a study of God, and it is about masculinity, and it is about like how this all came about, the why. That's the beauty of evolutionary science. It tells you the why, the ultimate reasons. There's a lot of surface level reasons for things, but evolutionary sciences really are good at describing the why.
Can I take it in a slightly different angle? What can you say about the psychology of a person who's sort of proud to submit to such a character, or conversely, people like me who resent that kind of behavior?
Well, sure. It's always easier to observe other people than ourselves. It's just one of those things. We have greater insight into how other people think and to their biases, and it's harder to see those things in ourselves. And so we can extend that to just looking at other species. Sometimes when you see something in other species, it's like, okay, that's where it comes from. If you're in a chimpanzee troop and there's a member of this troop that has a lot of power, that's strong, that has access to mates, you're going to want to ally yourself with them. So a lot of the submitting to God, is based on the need to ally ourselves with more dominant individuals. Mating opportunities, for example, in the chimpanzee troop correlate to how close you are to the dominant male in the hierarchy. So there's benefits to that. And, there's also the benefits of protection. And one of the chapters I talk about, that's a pull for a big, large, aggressive male god, is that, we've just like the pull to large, aggressive men, we seek that kind of the comfort that those men can provide in our deities. So as just a couple ways to answer your question.
What seems strange to me about that notion is, on the one hand, we're arguing for the idea that the God of the Abrahamic religions is this powerful protector God who will always be there, who's our, heavenly father for the Mormons, somebody who's this authoritarian figure in our lives who will always be there to protect us. But bad things happen to religious people all the time, right? Just as much as they do to anybody else. What is it about an appeal to a protector God when we can see that the results don't match up with that expectation? I'm curious to know why more people don't realize, hey, shitty things happen to me all the time. God hasn't been there to protect me from anything and everything. Why do I still think that there's this invisible protector being up in the sky who's looking out for me all the time? I don't understand why more people don't see that disconnect.
He's a mysterious monkey, Dan. He works in mysterious monkey ways.
Yes, he does. That is a terrific question. And, when you really think about what it means to be human, it's a terrifying experience. We have such an enormous understanding of self compared to other animals. And with that sense of self and our ability to understand, to project ourselves into the future, we're aware of our own death, probably unlike any other animals. And that's a really terrifying, existentially terrifying position to be in. So, we create gods in an attempt to mitigate that terror. And this is something that has been studied a lot in the research lab, and theoretically, but it is kind of bizarre because fear co-opts reason a lot. Fear takes over reason so much in our lives, not only in religions, but politics and everything else. If there's anything that I think should be a standard part of public education is understanding the cognitive biases that come out of that. There's one called motivated reasoning, where people have a tendency to jettison or deflect information, just to ignore it, to soothe their fear. And we can really pick this apart in the research lab. When there's a sense of fear, people will ignore information, and that is a pretty motivated reasoning is incredibly strong, I think, in religions and in exactly the kind of situations you just described. I mean, it does seem bizarre, when if you're talking about an omnipotent, presumably caring God, to pray for victims of a hurricane, right? Or pray for somebody who has cancer. Well, the question that I think a lot of secularists come up with is, well, why didn't this God say stop it in the first place if he was there watching and caring in the first place? But it gives the people a sense of control, I guess.
Well, and why would you have to pray to this God if you also believe that he has a plan in place? That he's always right, he knows everything, and has a plan in place. What good would your prayers do for such a being? I mean, you're asking that being to change their entire plan for you, one lone little human. And
so most of these gods are described as being perfect. Well, if he can be swayed, he can be made to change his decisions. Is he perfect? But that's the kind of logical inconsistencies that just get bypassed as a means to assuage fear. If you just ignore it, you make yourself feel better.
Or maybe it was his plan all along to change his mind for your prayer,
and he was just waiting. What if I didn't pray? But then he knew that I was going to pray anyway. Like that's you just end up going in circles all the time.
Yeah, it's just God works off Doctor Who logic. He can only fix certain things. He can't fix points in time. He can only fix the small things. You know?
Why would you have to pray if he's omniscient? Because he already knows what you think.
Right. Yeah, that gets back to the whole submitting thing, right? There's an act, a performance he expects of you that doesn't serve any function other than purely to show that he's dominant.
Absolutely. And one of the things I try to explain is, the quality of making these sacrifices, So across religions, Lent, Ramadan, you surrender sex, you surrender food. An omnipotent God doesn't need sex or food.
Right.
Or burnt offerings.
But dominant males do, right? Dominant, if you watch Monkeys in the Monkey Troop, the dominant male, and sometimes the dominant female, depending on what species we're talking about, gets preferential access to all these things, preferential access to food and to mates and to sex. And the subordinates steer clear of those resources. So, when people send burnt offerings up to the heavens or fast or abstain from sex, it's intuitive to the primate brain. But when you pick this apart, it's like, oh yeah, of course, this isn't consistent with an everlasting, all-powerful being. It's consistent with the alpha male of the primate troop.
And why wouldn't you want to kiss Hank's ass? I mean, honestly.
Are you familiar with the kissing Hank's ass video and script?
No, I'm not.
Oh,
inside joke.
Well, you'll have to go and look for it on YouTube. It's just called Kissing Hank's Ass, and it's basically an analogy of there's a guy in town named Hank, and you need to kiss his ass. If you don't kiss his ass, he's going to kick the shit out of you. And if you do kiss his ass, then when you die, or not when you die, but when you leave town, he'll give you $1 million. But you can't leave town until he tells you to leave town. It's this really,
God, it's great.
Yeah, it's this really great analogy of basically God worship.
Wow. Who knew God's name was Hank?
Yeah, and it's kind of placed in this whole alpha male way of, having somebody in town that's an alpha that you have to do what he says, otherwise you get your ass kicked. So.
Yeah, well, it applies. Yeah. I could geek out on this all day, obviously, but it's the act of kissing, that's also a submission display. And,
better stop that.
Right.
No, please keep doing it, Chris.
Oh, Dan, sorry guys. No.
I do talk about the how beards are a dominus display, but back to kissing, that lip smacking noise. It's intended to emulate a suckling infant, and it's saying, look, I'm a child. I'm dependent. I'm suckling.
God damn it.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it serves a lot of purposes, but certainly, what do you do when you want to show somebody deference? You kiss their hands or their feet, as you see in the Bible. You kiss the Pope's ring. It's not a gesture of dominance.
Right. So what do you make of all of that stuff you just mentioned? Disgusts me. I would never do any of that stuff. I hardly even kiss my wife. I mean, almost never. I'm also not a very sexual person, but that is relevant to this particular conversation. But all of that stuff, so where do I fit into this whole thing? Or people like me who are just looking at this kind of confused and sort of disgusted and none of that makes sense to me. I mean, what you're saying makes perfect sense, but why people would do that?
Why they would supplicate themselves and subjugate themselves.
Or why do I have such an aversion if it's connected to our biology?
Well, I think free thinkers generally are probably more prone to just challenging the hierarchy, right? You have to think clearly and freely. because those at the top of the hierarchy are often in the business of controlling what everybody beneath them thinks. So I think there's, who knows, maybe it's self-selected for in some way. But, I obviously agree with you. I'm obviously not one of those who feels comfortable,
Sure.
With that level of supplication.
Can I add another step to that? So when I look at at least currently the Republican Party, and we're all Tea Partiers here, right? No, we're not.
Yeah.
But the Republicans are more of the chest thumping, hawkish, testosterone driven kind of party, but they're also the ones that are a lot more willing to do these kinds of things. They're connected to the religious right, this, proud, worshiping and proud of their chains, connected to Jesus and all that. It seems like such a contradiction, this juxtaposition of I'm independent and strong and caretaker and pull myself up by my bootstraps, and then
beg to God.
And then I'm on my knees every morning, and that's how I'm, and brag about being a serf to God. And it's so strange.
I think one just only has to look at how when Trump won the election, how everybody that was against him all of a sudden dropped to their knees and were supplicating at the feet of the Trump. And just, it's interesting to me that they were,
did you
fuck
call him
that guy?
The Trump?
Hate that guy. Yeah, he's the Trump. Yeah. Hate that guy.
Yeah.
Oh, but he's the guy now. Fuck. Okay. We love you, Trump.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, listen, you guys are going to like my next book. I'm almost done with it. I don't know if I mentioned that to you. I must have forgotten that.
Please do.
I'm effectively done with a second book that's looking at this very question, just looking at, why do we have political parties? Where does this come from? And there's some really interesting research on this topic, and which I'm expanding upon, kind of along the same lines. And all this stuff falls on a natural curve. And those on the political right tend to be way more tribalistic. We all have our tribes. It's not to say that the left doesn't have its tribal orientations, but there's a greater share of that on the right, and that came out of a very warlike past that our ancestors lived through. One of the things about competition between groups is that having a well-defined leader that calls the shots and having a hierarchy is critical for that. Just that's how the military is structured. Those groups that couldn't coordinate that way, they just wouldn't survive on the battlefield. As one very, overly simplistic way of describing kind of how that look up to the alpha male became selected for, and in our evolutionary past, and now gets kind of expressed through political orientation.
This is Dr. Dan, Matt's boss from the Two Skeptical Chaps podcast, and you are listening to The Godless Revolution. Oh shit, did I say I mean revolution. Bloody Americans fucking up the language. You can edit that, right, Spike?
I look like I belong on Duck Dynasty.
No. That's kind of cool.
Yeah. No, it's not. They're famously racist.
Thanks for listening. Now back to the show.
I'm going to go on a little bit of a sidecar here, which is kind of interesting when you're talking about people on the right and picking the alphas and stuff. It's amazing to me. I happen to follow a lot of the alt-right stuff that's going on in the world, and their new poster boy is, what's his name? Peterson. I can't remember his first name.
Jordan B.
Peterson. This relatively obscure Canadian psychologist that just got plucked out of obscurity, and all of a sudden he's like this $70,000 a month on Patreon, telling all the people on the right how they should think, how they should feel, how they should act and stuff. And it's really interesting to me that out of nowhere, all of a sudden people have this rallying figure, this daddy to go to. And it's really fascinating.
Yeah. That is interesting. It fits seamlessly into people like him or people like Donald Trump. I wrote a piece in Psychology Today about, why Donald, he acts like a dominant ape, and those predisposed to seek comfort, seek inspiration from those types, their psychology is ready made for that, and they glom onto that.
He definitely bears the big red baboon.
Yeah,
ass all the
he
time,
looks
so.
he looks rather like a male orangutan.
He does. He does.
And that handshake, that's clearly a dominant thing, right?
That's so 1980s businessman power handshake bullshit that he does, and my tie's longer than your tie, therefore I'm the alpha male.
Yeah, although it's just, in his case, it's just so blatant and so simple. Yeah. That's the part that I think, really offends most of the world.
Well, one of the themes that you refer to several times in the book is this notion of dominance and prestige, or dominance versus prestige. And by prestige, I took that to mean people who are more learned, more educated, more aware of the world around them, versus somebody who exhibits patterns of dominance and comes in as an authoritarian. And so the three of us here in the studio are very politically minded, and we're all very liberal. And so when I see you referring to that over and over and over again, of course, the orangutan in the Oval Office is what instantly springs to mind. But your book primarily talks about George Bush, and I'm sure that's just because of the timing of when it was written and released. And I've noticed too that among those who seem to have a preference for dominant authoritarian figures, they are all, not all, but primarily they're on the right. They're on the right side of the spectrum. They're very religious. They do a lot of chest thumping themselves and seem to think of themselves as dominant and alpha males in so many ways, yet they subjugate themselves to a higher power. How do you think that plays out in politics? Is that reflective of the politics that we see today?
Oh, you could just overlay a lot of these concepts from religion into politics, and they're just like religious hierarchies. Politics are the primate dominance hierarchy. But one interesting line of research that's been replicated over and over and over is that finding that conservatives tend to be way more xenophobic, way more afraid of outsiders. And, all of this falls on a natural curve. So, to a certain extent, there are advantages to being wary of outsiders in our evolutionary past, which was far, far, far more violent than it is today. There are advantages to being open to the neighboring tribe. And that's how this spectrum, this political spectrum, maps onto the natural curve. But that's a really common finding, and there's even a literature showing that that conservatives tend to be more germ phobic, and that is another reason to avoid outsiders, especially. It's hard to conceive of that when we have freely available or cheaply available vaccines that are really good at eradicating disease. We didn't have that back in our days as hunter-gatherers.
Mm-hmm.
So avoiding the rival tribe that often carries pathogens that you don't have a resistance to, that served a purpose. The question is, how much does it serve us now in this modern age of technology?
No dirty hippies in the alt-right.
Well, have you guys seen the study that came out a couple of weeks ago where a lot of the people that are conservative minded, and this could be just complete bunk science for all I know, but there was a study that
I'm glad you're bringing it up.
Well, no, it was interesting to me because it kind of makes sense when he's talking about people being xenophobic, is that a lot of the people that are super conservatives are afraid a lot of the time.
You got to build that wall.
Oh yeah, they're fearful. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it just seems interesting to me that a lot of this is tied into that lizard brain of ours where we're just fight or flight most of the time on keeping the outsider out. And a lot of us are like, well, the world's better because we're letting the outsider in. But
Yeah. Republicans are more lizard brain, as you say it. I mean, there's definitely there's been some really fascinating research looking at just the size of the amygdala. The amygdala is a brain structure that produces fear and aggression, and conservatives have a larger amygdala than liberals. So it's an adaptation to threat, But if you read books like Steven Pinker's book, Better Angels of Our Nature, which crunches a huge amount of data, we've been getting more and more and more peaceable since our days as hunter-gatherers. It may not seem like it because we're also inundated with more information than any time in our history.
Right.
So if something bad happens across the world, everybody knows about it.
Yeah, it's like Trump wanting to send the National Guard to the border, even though the crossings are a lot less than they've ever been when it comes to illegal immigrants and stuff.
And
it's
that
fascinating.
Is the hook that is used to manipulate us, right? Just wave that red cape and say there's an enemy out there, and that's how we get manipulated, because the fear brain kicks in and it bypasses the reasoning parts of our brain. So it's dangerous.
Yeah, another thing, getting back into politics and the effect that we see in politics, around a lot of the concepts that you discuss in the book, I've noticed, I'm guessing you guys have also, that atheism trends toward a more liberal population, right? Most atheists, I would say the overwhelming majority of atheists who are out and open and activist are very liberal. And the few conservative atheists that I've encountered all seem to want to have an authoritarian atheist source, right? They'll look to some other person within the atheist movement as like the atheist leader, and they'll parrot everything that person says. They do everything that person says. They agree with them 100% until they don't, until they have one little disagreement with them. And then that person becomes the world's biggest asshole, right? It's almost as if their God has betrayed them, and now they need to lash out at that God that, or that person that they've put on a God pedestal. I don't know if you've noticed anything similar to that.
Well, I think the tendency to deify leaders, it's really fascinating. And, I do think that's more, I mean, there's a lot of evidence to show that that's more concentrated on the right. After World War II, an army of scientists began to study, how did this all happen? How did Hitler happen? And, one of the things that was developed was a measure called right-wing authoritarianism, where you do look up to authority and to the dominance hierarchy, and you obey it more. Conservatives clearly, they score higher on these measures. And I'm sure even people who are more on the right wing among free thinkers, you probably see that look.
So one of the other things that I've noticed is that because most atheists I know are very liberal.
Yeah.
And most of them, left, they never have any desire to have an authoritarian telling them what to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that has resulted in a lot of schisms, because they'll see somebody who's thought of as a thought leader within the community, and if they say something that doesn't align with, what they think as a perfect representative of the atheist community, they're very quick to call them out, and that causes all kinds of schisms and problems. And not that that's a bad thing. I think that's a good thing. I think it's good to have those dialogues and discussions, but I think it also seems to be a consequence of prestige versus dominance and liberalism versus conservatism.
Yeah, that's really an interesting point, and in many ways, free thinkers, secularists, atheists are kind of the anti-tribalists, right? So we're not as ready to fall in line with group consensus, question. question things, but does that limit us? Does that limit our growth? Can we find a way to create the anti-tribe? You know what I mean? Can we grow in numbers without, rejecting the group like free thinkers are, I think, more prone to do. But
yeah,
we're all tribalists, though. We all have that tendency to a greater or lesser extent. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I find depressing about that is that I see way too many people rejecting the good in favor of the perfect that we'll never reach, right? They're very quick to cast aside or disparage somebody who, for what I view as sometimes minor infractions, and that I'm not talking about things like sexual harassment within the community or anything grievous and terrible that you should absolutely be ostracized for, but I'm talking about minor points of disagreement on various issues where it seems that for a large part of the population or a large part of the atheist community, we can't even have those conversations.
Surely you're not suggesting liberals are slightly more idealistic.
I am, actually. And I mean, that's a good thing, but it can also be a problem in situations like that.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, there's liberals have our blind spots too. I mean, I consider myself pretty politically liberal, but we all have our blind spots.
Yeah.
It's that goddamn testosterone.
Speaking of testosterone and needing it for beards, so because I haven't gotten to the chapter about beards, not that I want you to spoil it for me, but please spoil it for me. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Well, so
and I should note that I noticed that at the American Atheists Convention, you were clean shaven.
Oh, I was clean shaven.
Are we all three of us oppressing women with their facial hair?
I do variously grow and shave my beard or goatee or whatever. But now my beard's got all kinds of gray in it. So I don't know. Somebody told me that I lost 20 years by shaving, so I kind of kept it off.
I just got a weak chin.
So beards, yeah. In the animal world, being bigger has its advantages, right? In the physical plane, there are a lot of animals who develop adaptations to feign larger size. Like there's this cool lizard called the frilled neck lizard that has these flaps that flare out when it's threatened. Have you guys ever seen that, like on Nature Show or something?
Like a Dilophosaurus, yeah.
Jurassic Park.
Yeah, like in Jurassic Park. It flares out these flaps, and if you're looking at it straight on, it makes its head look big. So a lot of mammals, like the male lion, for instance, has a big mane, makes his head look bigger. A lot of primates have various adaptations to serve the same purpose. These giant eyebrows or ear tufts or beards, or like orangutans have these big fatty facial pads on the side of their face. But this is usually concentrated in males and used for mate competition, right? Used to compete with other mates for dominance, for sexual dominance.
Like horns on, you mentioned horns on elks and things like that.
Yeah, they're selected for, they go through a process of sexual selection.
Does the feline piloerection count in that, where or in canines, with the fur all gets, when they're startled or something, gets all puffed up, and is that part of that same process?
I think it serves the same purpose. I mean, look at chimpanzees when one is giving a dominance display, it fluffs all its hair out and it looks bigger. But there are some adaptations that men have too, and that's to grow a beard. If you look at somebody with a beard, it looks like the bottom of their jaw starts way lower. It makes their head look bigger, just like a male lion, just like any of these other animals. So the idea is to convey strength. Not surprisingly, men along the religious hierarchy tend to have big beards, Orthodox, rabbis. And we have taken that display into our own hands by wearing these massive head displays. Generals wear hats that are bigger than their subordinates. It's intended to look big and menacing and authoritative. If you guys ever seen the Pope's triple tiara, you know what that is?
No, what's that?
It's this giant hat that the Pope wears. It's not intended to be subtle.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I misheard you when you said Pope's tiara.
I just imagined him winning some sort of beauty contest and having this amazing tiara put on his head.
Well, it's way more ostentatious than that. And when during the papal coronation, I forget the exact words, but you are the ruler of kings, ruler of the world. Take this hat. That's what it connotes, And to show deference, what do? We remove our hats, right? We remove our big head displays. So all these adaptations get taken up by men on the religious hierarchy, and beards are meant to connote strength and power and intimidation.
Which is interesting. You think about like the Amish communities or the Mennonite communities where there's the hate crime that happens sometimes where they chop off each other's beards.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. That's how they dominate one another.
Oh yeah, you actually mentioned that in your book when women would get out of line sometimes in the past, one of the punishments was to shave their hair off.
Yeah, I think that has a different connotation for women because hair is more about, women is more about beauty. The ability to grow long hair suggests health and fertility. Whereas, chopping off your rival's beard, that's pretty strongly a dominance, play. And cutting off women's hair as well. But I think it has different implications, I think.
So tell us a little bit more about your next book. You said that it's based more on politics?
This book, so yeah, religion and politics are two things you're not supposed to talk about. Talking about them both, and this next one is kind of taking some of the same concepts and applying them to help us understand why we have political orientations. Why? What are these? What is the reason for all this stuff? How does that result in us becoming divided along partisan lines, which is not new to the U.S. and what you've seen, with the election of 45. It's something you see across cultures and across times. Chris Matthews once said that Republicans are the daddy party and Democrats are the mommy party.
Mm-hmm.
And I found that kind of interesting because evolutionarily, psychologically, that's true in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
Women and liberals tend to be more nurturing. They tend to be more interested in equality. Tend to have greater compassion, and that's measurable. Whereas conservatives tend to be more male-like and interested in territory, interested in hierarchy, interested in competing with the outside groups, more xenophobic. So taking this, massive political machine and trying to bear some understanding down on it by observing it through an evolutionary lens. And that's what it's about.
And I'm mainly saying this is a joke, but Chris Matthews, come on. No, just kidding.
Right.
No, I'm messing with you. I like him enough.
I think he's right sometimes.
Yeah,
I think in this case that makes perfect sense.
I've watched more of his show than I ever have Maddo, I think, because that's just how I grew up.
Yeah, so other people have said similar things. So, what is that woman's name? That kind of raging right-wing, long blonde hair.
Tommy Lauren?
No,
Ann Coulter.
Ann Coulter is who
Ann
I would.
Coulter.
Yeah,
sorry.
That's who I was like. Yeah, that
Laura Ingraham.
Yeah, there's so many.
Any female on Fox News?
Right. But you guessed Ann Coulter, second person. So she once said, "I'm more of a man than any liberal." So whatever we think about those two people, they've made some observations that are really, this is coming from from the popular media, not necessarily from scholars, but it's really telling. And so what I'm doing is just unpackaging all this and seeing if and explaining why it's actually a lot more accurate than you might think.
I think that sounds fascinating.
I'll definitely pick up a copy when it comes out.
Yeah, I would absolutely love to have you back on the show after that book comes out and after I've read the whole thing, and then I'll send you an invite to come on the show. But
we'll just talk about the parts that you hadn't read yet. We'll just do like a 3-hour long show. It's cool. I like talking with you guys. You're cool guys.
Oh, thanks.
Well, thank you very much. And thank you very much for coming on the show. Like I said, I have not finished the book yet, but I'm absolutely loving everything that I've read so far. And I'm sure I'm going to post a glowing review of it here in the next few days after I've completed it, because it's like, I'm guessing that you've run into it before where you've come on somebody's show and they obviously haven't read the entire book and they have you on the show and they probably will never finish it. But I don't know why they would do that with your book, because it's fucking fantastic. Like, honestly, from the first chapter, those very first few pages, I was like, well, I have to read this whole fucking thing. Like, I have a hard time putting it down and have lost some sleep over the last couple days just because I wanted to keep reading it. Not just because we were having you on the show, but because it's a really fascinating, really interesting take on things that has changed how I view a lot of things in the world.
Does this type of kissing count as submission behavior?
Now listen, we're a bunch of thinking atheists here. We've read some of this book, so.
Oh man, well thank you. Like reading based insomnia is a huge compliment apparently. So I appreciate that. It's all about I find it so rewarding just to convene with other curious minds and to share this. I mean, that's kind of the whole purpose for writing. So it's, I really enjoyed talking with you guys. It's a pleasure.
Well, thank you so much.
Doing so helps me, helps shape my own thinking too. So it's good.
Oh, great.
Yeah, this has been awesome. So for our listeners in the audience who want to learn more about this and more about you, where would you recommend that they go and look?
You can go to hector-garcia.com and it's a relatively up to date list of some of the things that I'm doing, my TED Talk, my book, and some research articles that I do, because I also do some hard science. And that's probably the best place.
Well, Dr. Garcia, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you so much.
What a super nice guy.
He is really, really nice.
This is Phil Ferguson of the cleverly titled The Phil Ferguson Show, and thank God you're listening to the Godless Revolution.
Hello, ma'am. My goodness, you have such an attractive little garden here.
Oh, thank you, young man. I just planted those flowers last week. My, how they grow.
Yes, ma'am. We're from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Oh, the Mormons.
That's right. I'm Elder Young, and this is Elder White.
Well, you two boys can just fuck right off.
Ma'am?
You heard me. Take that Book of Mormon and shove it so far up your righteous asses that you choke. You soul-soliciting pig fuckers. Here.
Gosh.
Thank you to everybody who has rated the show on iTunes and Stitcher and are following us on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. And to all our Patreon patrons, you make the show possible.
What have you got for us this evening, Matt?
I have a little story about, well, it's not really about Easter, but it happened on Easter.
Oh, yeah? April Fool's Day? Was it Easter this year, or
just like your guys'
in years
episode?
past?
13 minutes of Ryan Duffy.
Oh,
I guess we have to acknowledge that now.
Yeah.
Oh wait, what are you talking about? I have no. Shit, my bad.
I really was hoping to somehow get Ryan's reaction to it. Like I really wanted to contact Sarah to see if she could just record him while he listened to it or something, but then I was like, I don't want to give it away, and ends up that Mrs. Duffy gave it away anyway and contacted him like, this show's only 13 minutes. And then Ryan contacted me wondering what was wrong. It was just, It's going to be fun next week when he's on the show with us and we can talk about it more. Because, yeah, I had a lot of fun with that. That was funny. It makes me giggle just thinking about it.
Yeah. An argument over religion on Easter Sunday allegedly prompted a Chicago man to pull a handgun on two people at a Hempfield Township apartment building that led to a standoff with state police that lasted more than 6 hours.
Hempfield?
Yes.
And he's in the wrong town.
Antoine D. Drew was arraigned Monday before Hempfield District Judge Mark Mansour. That's what it says. Mansour.
Have you licked him? I mean,
on multiple criminal charges of aggravated assault, illegal possession of a firearm by a felon, making terroristic threats, simple assault, and reckless endangerment in connection with the incident at the Hemphill Heights apartment complex. Mansour ordered Drew held in the Westmoreland County Prison on a $100,000 bond. Drew was at his girlfriend's apartment on West Hills Drive along with the girlfriend's mother and the mother's boyfriend, who were visiting from Virginia. Trooper Joseph Lauricia reported in an affidavit of probable cause. While the girlfriend was at work, the two men got into an argument over religion about 10:30 p.m. Sunday. Drew pulled out a silver and black weapon that police later determined was a .380 caliber handgun. Drew began to yell at the two visitors to get out of the apartment. The two feared for their lives, with Drew waving and pointing a pistol at them, and left. They called 911 and the state police responded. When troopers arrived, Drew refused multiple requests to surrender. Drew explained there's no way he was going to exit the apartment and that the police would have to earn their money. The state police...
You're going to earn today.
I know I'm going to prison. Fuck you. You're going to earn it this time.
The state police special emergency response team was called, and Drew eventually was taken into custody inside the apartment at about 5 a.m. A search warrant was executed, and the firearm used in the incident was found concealed behind the bottom stove drawer. I don't know how they found that.
Well, yeah, they'd have to turn the place upside down, or somebody told them, hey, this is where it is.
Yeah. Lauricia said Drew has convictions in Illinois for multiple firearm possession and drug violations, and Sewer tentatively set a preliminary hearing on April 13th.
Sounds like just the kind of thing you should do on the day celebrating the Lord's resurrection.
I always wonder about, like, I know why they put people in jail awaiting their trial, but that always strikes me as so counter to a presumption of innocence.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it disproportionately affects people at the lower end of the income scale also. Like, poor people get locked up. Rich people can just pay their bail and fucking walk away.
And it also affects the perception of the jury, too. If you come out shackled and in an orange jumpsuit, even if you haven't done anything, but you've been sitting in jail waiting for your trial, and then you come out looking like a prisoner, and then they have someone go up on the stand who's dressed as an officer, which is also not elite. That's not allowed. You're not allowed to go dressed as an officer. So why are we forcing them to go as a prisoner? Because
you're not allowed to go dressed as an officer?
No, you're supposed to wear a suit because it unfairly biases the jury.
Well, so would a suit if the fucking guy's in a jumpsuit.
Exactly. Yeah. But they're saying that it adds credibility if you show up as an officer, like with the badge and everything, that there's implied credibility that affects the trial. But then somehow an orange jumpsuit and shackles doesn't.
And a suit doesn't convey something similar along those lines, particularly when contrasted against somebody in an orange jumpsuit?
Yeah, but they should let him wear a suit too.
You're right.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Everyone should be in suits or whatever.
Or everyone should be in just regular street clothes or whatever. But
whatever. But
or,
it shouldn't
not have them in jail to begin with and just, say,
well, there's that.
This is your court date. If you miss it, then you're going to jail for real, kind of thing. But
yeah, I'm really struck by how much better rich people have it than other people, just in general, right? Like, when not that I'm rich by any means, but I'm certainly more well off than a lot of people that I know, and am much more well off than I have been at previous moments in my life. I have been really poor. I've been that kid in school with the fucking shoes with holes in it and duct tape and
But you pulled yourself up by them shoes and got yourself to where you are today.
Pulled myself up by my own bootstraps. No, I have led a very privileged life where I have just kind of lucked my way into great jobs and learning experiences that led to even better jobs. I've been very, very fortunate in my life that, I mean, I never got my college degree. I never finished college, but I happen to be pretty good at just being able to read stuff and learn stuff pretty quickly. And that's how I picked up programming. And then it's just all my years of experience backed up where I am in my career now. And even now, I wish that I had been able to finish my degree because I would automatically, I mean, I'd be making more money now if I had my degree and I would be in a better position. But I'm at a point in life now where I'm making a decent wage. But when we went to go to Oklahoma, we're standing in line. We go to the Salt Lake airport, ready to head to Oklahoma and go through the security check line. And it's like fucking all the way down the hallway out into almost the parking lot to get through security. And I was like, holy shit, we've got an hour before the plane starts boarding. I don't know if we're going to have enough time. And at Salt Lake Airport, they started this new thing called Clear Me. It's a separate private company where you can pay them a shit ton of money.
Boo.
To sign up for biometric identification and clearance purposes. You give them your fingerprints and a retina scan and fill out all of your address information and some background information. And then you're cleared through security. You can just walk up to this thing, enter your biometric data, whether it's your fingerprints or retina scan, and bypass the security line and just go on through, basically. But you have to pay a lot of fucking money to do that. And I thought, so we did it because you could do it on a trial basis, like, come on over and we'll get you all set up and this will automatically renew in 30 days for a year's supply of this thing. But right now, if you just sign up, then we can let you through. And so we went and did that. Ultimately, we ended up going through the line at right about the same time we would have anyway. There was a guy who was standing a few people in front of us that Tracy recognized as we were finally going through the security checkpoint, and he was there right about the same time we were. But it struck me that in future going through the airport, I would be able to use this. And it's only because I have more money than a lot of the other people standing in line. Yeah. And I was like, that's really kind of fucking bullshit. Like, why is it that only because I have more money than these people that I get to go through? Like, that's fucking bullshit to me. Why can't everybody do that? Why doesn't the government control that kind of thing?
A capitalist government? They're doing exactly what they should. Let private business take it over and people who can pay get it and the rest are fucked. That's exactly what capitalism is.
Well, yeah, but there's so much stuff like that in life where if you have the means to be able to pay for something, it makes your life... Oh, shit. Sorry. If you have the means... I just smacked the microphone. But if you have the means to pay for something...
You can become president.
You can do so much more than people at the lower end of the economic scale. And that's really fucking unfair. And it bothers me a lot. And I feel personally guilty. Like, well, I make more money and I can afford to do this. And so I do these things. And then I'm like, fuck, what about all these people over here who are... I know a bunch of people who don't make as much money as I do who are tons smarter, way nicer, like just better people overall who get fucked because they don't make as much money as I do.
I think you're a pretty sweet guy.
Well, thank you, but
that's the reason why you care at all about this. I mean,
well, that's very nice of you to say, but it just really bothers me on a basic fundamental level that only because I make more money than some of these other people that I get to go through the line. Like, that's we're fucked up.
Feminine Democrats that care about equality.
I just wish we go back to the old way of doing things where you just walk from off the fucking street and just walk to whatever terminal you want to go to.
Oh, so not that old. I thought you meant like, you get mad and you just spear the guy. Something.
Dude,
move to the front of the line.
And apparently they're completely redoing Salt Lake Airport.
Oh, yeah.
Like, from what I understand, they're going to basically level the existing airport, and they've already started construction on a brand new airport that's going to be a single terminal to handle all airport traffic. And they're making larger runways so they can bring in larger planes. And
as long as it's not going to be Hartsfield, I'm okay with that. Yeah.
It's a big deal. Like it looks very impressive from the posters they have hanging in the existing terminals at the airport now that will eventually come down, it sounds like.
Well, and especially considering Delta's probably looking for a new place to host their
new
corporate headquarters since Georgia's a bunch of uncooperative pricks that think it's fun to, you don't like the NRA, we're going to fucking remove your tax credit. And they're like, okay, well, we'll just go to some other state that likes us.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but the new airport, when it's done, looks like it's going to be pretty cool. But it just, I don't know, I started thinking about so many other things in life that I can just pay for, and I don't even have to think about it. But I can remember times in my life where there's no fucking way that I would ever have been able to do any of this stuff, only because I didn't have the money available to do it. And that seems so basically unfair that it makes me cringe. Anyway.
Damn liberals.
So,
what are Dan liberals?
This guy sitting to my left.
Dan liberals.
Radio left, people. That's where Dan's
not
sitting.
this fucking guy.
Yes, this fucking guy.
I absolutely love this video.
I have not seen this yet, but listener Alan Firkinoff sent us a link.
Thanks, Alan.
To Matt's favorite cross hat wearing dipshit.
Well, the interesting thing
now it's
here
fucking camo.
Him had to sit through, and once you click it, you'll understand. But he had to sit through 41 minutes of this guy's inanity.
What is the video that I'm about to click on? 41 minutes long?
It's more than 40. It's like the entire Dave Daubenmire fucking show, and he queued it up to the right point where it needs to be. But it's just, man, I fucking hate this guy.
So the link that Alan sent to us is to Hemant Mehta's blog out on Patheos, and it says the title of the blog entry is Christian Right Activist. You shouldn't touch yourself because it's totally gay. The text of the blog entry says Christian right activist Dave Daubenmire said on his Pass the Salt live webcast.
Wait, I know we've talked about that before, but that's
yeah. Pass the Salt.
That's so fucking dumb.
Yeah. Pass the Salt live webcast yesterday that masturbation was wrong in part because it was a form of homosexuality. Because you're satisfying someone of the same gender when you satisfy yourself. Is what I'm guessing.
You may be thinking about titties, but you're pulling a penis.
Yeah. You're touching yourself. Therefore, it is. Therefore, you're touching someone of the same sex. Therefore, it's totally gay. # Christian logic. Masturbation is homosexuality. You're having sex with a man. You get it? You put images of woman in your mind, but you're having sex with a man. It is where the devil will take us if we give them free reign in our minds. But let's... we
as if he doesn't do that.
Right. And never has.
Yeah.
Maybe he just really regrets his, self-pleasing homosexual penis tugging and now has to, pay penance for it through his Pass the Salt live show.
Completely neglecting sex toys too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You can get a pocket pussy, right? As a male, you can get a pocket pussy. You can get a pocket whatever that you're going to stick your penis into.
Yep. Fleshlight.
Yeah. Fleshlight.
There's a lot of brands out there, people. Go to adamandeve.com.
No, they're not proud sponsors. Let's see what he says.
Masturbation is homosexuality. You're having sex with a man.
Well, if you're a man who's masturbating.
Yeah. And first of all, so what?
First of all, whenever you say first of all, I automatically in my head, from whatever episode you said it in, I hear when you say first of all, and then I hear fuck truck. You said that during one of the episodes, and it really...
Oh, really?
It hit my funny bone. And
I don't
so
know. Now... I didn't realize I said first of all that often.
I've listened to all 200, and I don't even get that reference.
It had an impact on me for whatever reason. I think the fuck truck part just really...
You know what sticks in my head?
Huh?
McCords, bro. Sorry. Like, wait, what? McCords.
Yeah.
Like when... Never mind. Sorry.
When I have to take this long circuitous route to explain my thinking, I'm like, I should have just not opened my mouth then, probably.
I just remember my pair of kickwear cords that I had. They were baby blue and they had the big ass Jinko legs on them. I was a cool guy in high school. Not.
I don't think I've worn corduroys. No, I had a pair of, I want to say I had a pair of air quotes nice corduroys during my first marriage. They were like dress corduroy pants that I still don't understand, but they were a thing for a little while.
You get it? Now you put images of a woman in your mind, but you're having sex with a man.
How do you know so much about how to do it?
Yeah, how do you know what's going on in my mind while I'm doing it?
Could be thinking about Smurfs. I mean, it could be.
That's where the devil will take us if we give him free reign in our minds.
Why? How is that tied to the devil? Like, well, first, I guess I've never understood why religion has a big hang up about masturbation. Why is masturbation so bad? Because you're not defiling somebody else. You're not spreading disease. You're not, if you're a virgin, you're not losing your virginity, but you're still able to satisfy those sexual urges. Why is masturbation so bad?
Because controlling sexuality is dominating.
Well, sure, but
the God decides all of that.
Well, I guess, so even if we figure the people who believe in a God don't want you to masturbate, what is their reason for not wanting you to masturbate? I mean, what do they say as you shouldn't do it?
Are we going to have a discussion about the fact that Christians don't have a practical a reason for something? I mean, is that the discussion we're having?
Well, were you ever given a reason other than
immoral.
It's bad?
Yeah, it's immoral. It's not sexual purity.
You'll grow hair on your palms. You'll go blind.
Well, but yeah, like all I've ever heard is it's bad, but they've never explained why it's bad.
Yeah.
There's the whole bit about
Onan.
About, was it Lot's wife spilling his seed?
Onan.
Yeah. So he jerked off into the desert instead of putting his seed into somebody. So is it just that you're wasting
in his dead brother's wife?
Yeah, he pulled out before.
He pulled out.
Yeah. So is it just that you're...
But even that scripture is supposed to be about the fact that he didn't do what he was supposed to do, which was impregnate his brother's wife.
His dead brother's wife.
And it's not about the fact that the sperm hit the sand. It's about the fact that it didn't make it to her eggs.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying the only justification I've ever heard for it growing up was that you're not supposed to because you're just wasting... You're just tossing your seed around willy-nilly all over the place.
As we learned from the Book of Python.
You can't get a sock pregnant. Come on.
Every sperm is sacred. Every sperm is good. Every sperm is needed in your neighborhood.
But I haven't ever heard a real, like, that's the only reason I've heard other than just it's bad.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know if there was any other attempt at justifying why it's bad or explaining why it's bad.
Well, I have heard that you'll train yourself to come more quickly, and that's less pleasurable for your partner. That's the only other thing I've had.
You've heard that one?
Yeah. Well, I think that was one specific case. I don't think that was like any doctrinal thing. It was just my buddy's mom.
I know the alt-right has a very much a don't touch yourself thing. You should save that for the women, kind of thing, where they've got that going on, where you're being effeminate if you're somehow masturbating. You need to be more manly and not do that.
Have more self-control kind of thing?
Yeah, I guess so. And Jordan Peterson's one of those guys that pushes that kind of thing as well.
Oh, fuck Jordan Peterson. What a piece of shit that fucking guy is.
Well, Dan, it's obvious you haven't read his entire body of work. Unless it's the other reason, then you're taking him out of context.
Yeah. All of the atheist center lords who think Jordan B. Peterson makes a bunch of great points. It's like, do you also know that he's super Christian-y?
Yep.
I'll bet you don't. Bet you don't fucking know that.
Kind of hard to miss.
Yeah. But yeah, I've never understood the rules or telling people why they shouldn't masturbate.
I was always paranoid. I was always paranoid that my parents were going to either catch me or they had a camera set up somewhere in the bathroom. I had a fucked up childhood, people.
So did you masturbate in your closet in the dark?
Shower.
Crying?
The steam in the shower would cover it up. That doesn't cover anything up, guys.
Clouds the camera.
Yeah.
That's why I said in In the commentary that I wrote yesterday, I don't know if I have time to read it, and I don't know if I should read it. Sex is a behavior, guys. It's a behavior. An orgasm. Oh, do I have to say that, Lord?
He can't say the word orgasm without feeling bad about himself. I think this guy might be a little bit sexually repressed. Maybe that's where all of his fucking anger comes from. Like, he wants to come so hard, but he just can't. Probably.
Yeah. Okay. This just sounds awful. I just got to say it. Sometimes one of the greatest feelings that you could ever have is a bowel movement.
So he likes things tickling his poop chute is what he's saying. It sounds like.
Well, you know, there's a good evolutionary reason for why a shit feels at least sort of good,
and why masturbation and sex feels good.
Right, of course.
I don't think there's an evolutionary reason why there's a G-spot in a men's ass, but I don't.
Probably not. I mean,
men just so happens to be there.
Yeah, men can climax without hitting the G-spot. But you were going to say what?
Oh, no, I think that was sufficient.
Yeah, not getting into the wonders of pegging.
You guys ever had one of those moments where you thought you could never get home? I'm holding it. I got to get home. Can you run in the house?
Because I got to shit. That's what he's saying.
Mm-hmm.
I got to shit. I got to get home.
Yeah, nobody's ever had that.
Just like how the good doctor was talking about how people on the right seem to be germaphobes. If I got to go, any bathroom will do. Maybe that's my liberal brain thinking here. I'll even use the nasty ass 7-Eleven bathroom. I don't care. Just whatever tends to be closest.
And the relief that comes. Well, is that feeling any different than the relief that you get when you have an orgasm?
Yeah.
For me, yes, very much so.
Is there a reason you're unaware of this?
Both of them are temporary releases and feelings of pleasure. One is associated with sex and one isn't.
Or both.
They both
can be. Yeah. I'm done with this guy.
This is Natalie Newell of Science Moms and the Parenthetical Science Podcast. You are listening to The Godless Revolution.
Bridget.
What?
You should try praying.
I'm not going to pray. I'm not going to pray to God. I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, you know what? You tell that to God, because he carried that guy across the sand, and there was one set of footprints, Bridget.
It's the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
Then here, how about this? You pray to the Virgin Mother. She's my favorite.
Mine too. Mothers cannot be virgins.
Well, Mary can. She was blessed by the Holy Spirit.
Mary was forced to have that baby.
Bridget.
I'm sorry, but Matthew and Luke and whoever did some stuff to her.
I don't want to hear it, Bridget.
And then called it an angel baby.
Okay, listen to me. That is the mother of God you're talking about.
We're all stuck praying to this angel baby.
What are you talking about?
I am on Mary's side. I am Team Mary.
There are no teams.
Yeah.
There are no teams in the Bible.
You are helping them get away with it.
Bridget, it's just blasphemous. That's what it is, and I don't really like it.
I am sorry to break it to you, but there's not some old bearded guy in the sky watching over us.
If you have questions, comments, concerns, compliments, corrections, criticisms, or concepts for content, contact the show via email at godlessrevolution@gmail.com, by text or voicemail at 330-81-REBEL, or Twitter the twatter at TGR Podcast. Thank you!
What else do you have for us?
Oh, shit.
Tonight, Matt.
I have
Putting you on the spot, sorry.
I have a takeaways from LDS General Conference.
Oh.
Uh-oh.
Yay. Oh my God. Yeah, we didn't fucking talk about that. Maybe we can talk about, well, please go ahead. I'm excited.
There's a lot that happened in 2018, people.
So this is actually a very condensed, as it's only, well, it's not very long. We'll just blow through it. This took place March 31st and April 1st. But usually this is when the leadership, the crusty old white men of the LDS Church get together, and it's basically a State of the Union / what's going to happen moving forward type of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
So main highlights, 2 new apostles brought international and racial diversity. This is written by Jana Reese. To the Quorum of the 12.
She's like one of my favorite Mormons now.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. The religion got its first ever apostle from the Southern Hemisphere in Ulysses Soares, 59 of Sao Paulo, Brazil. California native Garrett Gong, 64, became the first apostle of Asian descent. The Quorum of the 12 previously had only one member who was not an American, Dieter Uchtdorf of Germany.
The Silver Fox.
And no one was not white. New 70s were called, again with a strong international focus. The leaders hail from Australia, Portugal, Chile, Japan, and Brazil, as well as the United States. Dallin Oaks notes that there are now 116 general authorities of the church, and almost 40% of them were born outside of the U.S. The conference's strong international focus was also evident in which leaders spoke and gave each session's opening and closing prayers.
Are any of the new leaders black? I mean, it sounded like there was a smattering of a bunch of different nationalities.
I don't think so.
But it didn't sound like any of them were black.
Unless Ulysses Soares is, but I don't know. As President Nelson prepares to leave next week for his tour of 8 nations, it seems clear that one focus of his presidency is going to be the LDS Church's reach in the world.
Nah, I just pulled up a picture of Elder Ulysses Soares. And
he is not black.
He's a little swarthy, but definitely not black.
Oh, look at that. Another rich businessman.
Yeah.
Hey, how about that?
Yeah.
And then I wrote here that, except that if this is truly a church that receives intel from the Godmaster General, shouldn't all of this pseudo-progressive diversity hiring have taken place right from the beginning and not after social movements and pressures?
Yeah, absolutely. If God put this perfect church and his restored word here on earth, why is it taking it so fucking long to catch up to all the social progress we've made over the last, I don't know, how many years since 1978 when they finally decided to allow black people to hold the priesthood?
That'd be 40.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's easy. I was born in 74. I'm 44. Yeah, I could have done that math. Thanks, Chris.
Sorry. I was like, wait, it is an 8. That means you only have to worry about that second number.
A heckler disturbed the proceedings, shouting, "Stop protecting sexual predators," 3 times. This seems to have been related to the church's unfolding scandal concerning Joseph Bishop, a former president of the Missionary Training Center in Provo, who is accused of sexual misconduct with at least one sister missionary in the 1980s. During the conference weekend, Salt Lake City television station KUTV,
there's somebody suing the church over that guy now. So
yeah,
there's a lawsuit out there now.
There were many more than just one victim, but...
Okay.
One civil suit
Yeah.
going on right now, at least.
Well, local station KUTV ran a story suggesting the LDS Church's attorney may have provided documentation that contained sensitive information about the female victim's history to the accused man's son, Greg Bishop, who then released it to the media. No speakers overtly referenced the MTC controversy during the weekend, though one did speak out strongly against non-consensual immorality. Phrasing
Did you say consexual?
Did I?
It sounded like consensual.
Non-consensual.
Yeah. There was a bit of a scandal about that line, too.
Except I disagree with Jana here because phrasing it that way means they did not come out strongly against it.
Right.
If they say non-consensual immorality instead of rape or sexual assault,
Right, yeah.
that's not coming out strongly against
Well,
it.
and it's victim blaming. You're saying that the victim was immoral.
Right.
It may have been unconsensual. Oh my God. It may have been non-consensual, but that person was still immoral for allowing themselves to be fucking attacked by this person. Dude, he did an attack.
He did an attack. Non-contextual attack. The LDS Church's rate of growth has dipped below 1.5%. Church is still growing, but not with the robust speed enjoyed in the 1970s through the 90s, excuse me, when growth rates often range between 4 and 8%. In 2012, the church had a growth rate of 2.3% and is now steadily falling a bit each year to the 2017 numbers announced this weekend to show it now at 1.47%.
God, I remember the commercials from the 90s, too.
Yeah.
Families, it's about time.
Oh, yeah.
A message from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Home and visiting teaching give way to ministering. Sunday was also a day for surprise announcements. While in recent months, the LDS Church has rolled out changes to home and visiting teaching, on Sunday, President Nelson announced the program's demise. "We have made the decision to retire home teaching and visiting teaching as we have known them," he said. "Instead, we will be implementing a newer, holier approach, We will refer to these efforts simply as ministering. Details of the new program are available at the church's website. Wait, holier? How can that be possible? God gave you an imperfect and less holy instructions initially, and that failed, and now it's been corrected?
Well, we focus tested this one.
Yeah. Well, and it just wasn't translated correctly.
Okay, so his church leaders aren't representing him properly.
Well,
That's
they're
their only job.
They're only human. They have free will,
And what about the power of discernment that was used to appoint these people to these positions?
I think New Name Noah's got some words about the power of discernment.
Women spoke in 3 of 4 sessions. For most conference weekends in recent memory, only 2 women have addressed the faithful in mixed-gender general sessions. In the April 2017 conference, which featured 30 total speakers over 4 general sessions, only 1 woman spoke. The LDS viewer suggested on Twitter on Saturday that it would be great to hear from 1 woman during each general session, bringing the ratio of male to female speakers to something more like 6 or 7 to 1. For this modest entreaty, she received significant hateful pushback from some on Twitter, as well as support from others. There were very few mentions of the traditional family when compared to other recent conferences. Themes of the weekend included the importance of prophets, the vitality of personal revelation, and cultivating an ability to discern the promptings of the Holy Spirit, and how to minister more effectively to others in the ward. With only a couple of exceptions, few speakers doubled down on the traditional family. There were pieces of advice for parents and gratitude expressed to individual speakers' spouses, but a relative dearth of references to the family being under attack. No one discussed LGBT issues or same-sex marriage.
Well, who the hell's it under attack by then? Satan.
So I don't know if we should... No, I don't want to save it for the Patreon portion of the show. We're going to have a little bit of a longer episode tonight because I want to talk a little bit more about this. Because this all happened while I was in Oklahoma at the American Atheist Convention and wasn't really on social media a whole lot because I was being social in meat space. But after I learned all about this, it was like, holy fucking shit, man. And I had to watch this video. I'm going to play this little news clip here. This is from local news affiliate Fox 13.
Not a Sinclair station.
Not a Sinclair station, which is good. And actually the local Fox channel here is pretty good. Like the reporting and the people there are all pretty cool.
Yeah, people that are local, check out Ben Winslow. He's a reporter for Fox and usually does a lot of the political stuff. You should follow him on Twitter.
He's a good dude, yeah.
Well, that afternoon session wraps up about 1 hour ago, but early on, about 20 minutes in, at about 2:20 this afternoon, somebody stood up and started shouting. Let's take a look. And that shout of "Stop protecting sexual predators," most likely in reference to the recent allegations by a woman who said that the head of the Provo Missionary Training Center sexually assaulted her back in the 1980s. It could also be referencing the call to end those one-on-one interviews between bishops and children. Now, as people left the conference today, we reached out to get their reaction.
Causes you to wonder what's going on, that someone would want to do that just for a moment, and then you just kind of focus back on why you're there and the peace that you feel and what it means to you.
So she was actually like sitting right across from us, and it scared me more than anything. Like, it just startled me. And honestly, I was just like, there's always going to be people, and it's been kind of common recently. And I was just more interested in watching the new apostles.
I don't give a fuck about my own rights. I just worry about, what the leaders are telling me. I mean, my name's Benna Pincock.
I was going to say, what an unfortunate name. Oh, yeah, I've been a Pincock. Yeah. So when all this broke, the way that it was packaged to me and that I understood it was, if we take a step back and look at some of the recent legislation that was being put through Utah's legislature here in order to be passed as law, one of them was that you needed 2-person consent for recordings.
Mm-hmm.
And the LDS Church was pushing this really hard. They were backing this.
And it was out of nowhere, too.
Yeah. Like this has been, like, Utah, you need single-party consent forever. Like, that's the way it is. And all of a sudden, out of the blue, this is coming up, and everybody was kind of scratching their heads like, well, why is this so important right now? And why is the LDS Church really, really pushing hard for this to pass? And one of the reasons, as it has been explained to me, is because they had knowledge that, so this elder bishop who ran the MTC and was sexually harassing the young women there, they were made aware of a recording where he admitted to harassing this woman, of sexually assaulting her, and they wanted to pass this legislation so that would never see the light of day, because they had already started victim blaming the women and trying to say that they were just immoral and were trying to do whatever on their own, whatever, and did not want any of this to see the light of day. So they tried to pass this legislation so that it wouldn't be able to be.
Yeah, because they know that if they can pass a law that requires both parties, they know they can control those bishops.
Mm-hmm.
And so then they have full control.
Right.
Even though, it requires two, but as long as that one side is locked up, you have full control of all those conversations. So it's kind of sinister.
Yeah.
You know?
It was an attack helicopter. Someone's gender just flew over the house.
Oh God.
Stupid
I'm
shit.
so tired of that fucking argument.
I saw your comment in the Utah Atheists group the other day for that fucking clown who said that, and I was like, I gotta like Chris's comment here because that's fucking awesome.
Like, dude, that joke is so goddamn tired.
It's funny to me. Yeah, well, that's because you're a fucking moron.
Hey, how about using a little bit of that big brain of yours and have a section, just a segment of like empathy towards these people that, trans people are legitimately killed because they date somebody that doesn't want to date them. And they had no idea of that until they let people know. And it's like, oh, I guess I better kill this person because I thought it was a woman, but it's really not a woman. Oh, God damn it.
Yeah,
that pisses
whole,
me the fuck off.
That whole
man.
thread was a fucking shit show, man.
But like, are you attracted to the person or just what's between their legs? It's like, fucking hell, man.
Yeah, and I had a decent conversation with one of the people in there who was saying that they would never date a trans person, but they're not entirely sure why. And I was trying to suss out why that's the case, because there are trans people who not only pass, but that you would never know that they were ever a trans person. And so, if your big fucking hang up is that you would never date a trans person, but you can't even tell me why, even knowing and admitting that there are trans people who you're attracted to and that you would never know unless they told you, like, what's the fucking deal? And I said, so it sounds to me like you're still viewing this idea of that a trans woman is still somehow a man. And they're like, no, that's not it. And I'm like, okay, well,
then what is it?
What is it? Because you've said you don't know why. That's the only thing that I can possibly think of as to why you would have any hang up about this. So what is your issue? Well, I don't know. I feel like they're lying to me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but they're
there
not.
You go.
Yeah.
So,
but like, unless happy times are going to be happening in the bedroom, you don't have a right to know what the fuck is between their legs. It's just like, what the hell, dude?
Yeah.
It's like you automatically assume that when you go on a date with somebody, you're going to be fucking later that night. It's like,
well, and then to say that it's the responsibility of the trans person to let everybody else know that they're trans versus being the bigot who won't date a trans person and letting everybody know, hey, I'm not going to date a trans person.
Oh, and then they pulled out the ally card. I'm an ally.
Yeah.
It's like,
I don't think you quite understand how that works.
No, you don't get to declare that yourself there, buddy. That's other people giving you that title.
Yeah. Yeah, I tried the Socratic method and we went back and forth. And I mean,
it worked for the most part until he made his own little snarky sub-thread after that.
Yeah.
And I was just like,
that
fuck
was
that
bad.
dude, man.
That was bad.
I haven't been on Facebook drama in a long goddamn time. And that one just brought it out. I was like, I'm supposed to be writing fucking end of year fucking referrals for employees and shit. And here I am fighting on Facebook. I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with me? Got to a point where I had to turn it off. I'm like, I'm done.
Yeah. Yeah. I said my piece and then it was like notification after notification after notification of people posting and commenting. And I'm like, I got to turn that off because I got other shit to do. But that should wrap it up for us this evening. But before we go, I want to make sure that we thank our Patreon supporters. That would be Michelle Short,
Christy Kalbach,
Camille Borowski,
Numania,
Alan Firth,
Atheist,
Larry Wilson,
Dr. Dan, Matt's boss from 2SC Podcast, to whom we pledge loyalty.
What the fuck was that?
Janet Uter,
Let Them Eat Kofefi,
Stephen Andrews,
Marius Buchakowski,
Rob Otto,
Vanessa Lowe,
Utah Outcasts,
Tim Jacobson,
Matt Tuller,
Megan Kennedy,
Andrew Vodopich,
Randy Hamrick,
Jeremy Goodson,
Angelica Pearson,
Wesley Aaron,
Jeff Peterson,
Savita Kuna,
Purple Dragon,
and Taylor Grin.
Thank all of you
so much. We appreciate it more than you know. So thank you all very much for listening tonight. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, be sure to reach us at godlessrevolution@gmail.com. You can tweet us at TGR Podcast. You can visit us on our Facebook page or join our online Facebook community, which is easily findable under Godless Revolution. That's Revolution with a B.
Or call Dan Sell at
801-784-2053. That is my cell phone number. If anybody wants to give me a call, because I can easily block that shit if you're an asshole. And if you're a friend of the show, give me a call. Leave me a message. I don't typically answer phone calls initially. So
goddamn millennials.
So that's fine. But thank you all so much for listening. Thank you for being a part of the show for so long. Season 5 will be starting in just a couple weeks. After we did our 200th episode just last week. So it's all fun and exciting stuff, man. And I appreciate you guys for being here and doing the show with me. I appreciate all of our guests. And most importantly, I appreciate all of our listeners who have been, for one reason or another, listening to us for 4 years now.
Strangely.
But it's been a lot of fun. We're going to move into the Patreon portion of the show where we're going to talk about some other fantastic fun stuff. If you want to become a Patreon supporter of the show, a Patreon patron, you can do so by going to patreon.com/godlessrevolution. where you can pledge as little as $1 per episode to get all kinds of fun and fantastic freebies like extended episodes and occasional bonus episodes and fun stuff like that. And then we're going to do some other things in the future as we gain more Patreon supporters. So if you like what we're doing and want to help support the work that we're doing, please go out there and do that. And also, if you can't afford to do that, it would be great if you could go out to iTunes, Stitcher, wherever else, and give us a 5-star rating. That helps improve the visibility of the show for other people who may also be interested. So we would greatly appreciate it if you could do that. Also, share the show, share links to the show, share things that we put out on our page, though I haven't been good at doing that a whole lot. Whenever I remember to do it, it seems like we get pretty good feedback on it, but I just have been so fucking busy that I haven't done a whole lot of that lately. But thank you, and we'll move on to the Patreon stuff. And so until next week,
crucify Trump smirking.
Trump smirking.
Leave a cuckold to achieve nirvana.
And rate the show 5 times a day towards Warren Jeff's ass.
Welcome to the Godless Revolution. Ding dong, name dong.
I thought about jumping into it. I'm like, no, not ready. I'm sorry about the dogs.
That's not your fault. It's that fucking maniac, tiny little bitch, man. She thinks she's just queen shit.
Well, she was squaring off against me too. I'm like, do you not see how big I am?
Dude, if you would have like raised your arms and went, she would have peed and screamed running.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there you go. GOP primary debate, the kids table.
Yeah. Wow.
That's not the one that I fell asleep on.
2015.
I forgot about that.
See, not being able to forget fucking awkward social moments. I can't ever forget this shit. Fuck, I am an awkward human being.